All right, let's dive into our explainer on equality rights in Hong Kong. If you've got a constitutional law exam coming up, then this is definitely for you. We're going to break down the essential framework you'll need to absolutely nail any problem question that comes your way.
So we see headlines about inequality all the time, right? It's a huge social and economic reality. But for your exam, you need to shift your thinking. The question isn't just, is there inequality? The real question is, when does the law actually step in? How does the Constitution decide when different treatment crosses the line into unlawful discrimination?
And there it is. That's the billion-dollar question for any exam problem on equality. The courts don't just wing it. They use a very specific legal test. It's like a formula, really. And if you can master this formula, you're on the fast track to a great grade. So let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. Before we can start applying any legal tests, we have to be super clear on what equality actually means in a legal sense. And it's not as simple as you might think. In fact, there are two really important and kind of competing ideas that you've got to get your head around.
So at its very core, the right to equality is the right not to be discriminated against. The key phrase from the CUHK case, and this is a golden nugget for your exam answer, is that discrimination is all about arbitrary, invidious, or unjustified distinctions. Basically, it's about preventing the kind of unfairness that harms a person's dignity.
And this is where things get really interesting. You've got these two big ideas. On one hand, there's formal equality. It's pretty straightforward. Treat people who are alike, alike. It's about stopping really obvious, direct discrimination. But then you have substantive equality, which is way more sophisticated. It looks at the actual impact of a rule, and it gets that treating everyone the exact same way can actually keep certain groups at a disadvantage. This is how you start to understand indirect discrimination.
So where did these big ideas actually come from in the law? Remember, for any con law exam, you can't just talk about ideas. You have to anchor your argument in the legal text. So let's look at the key provisions in Hong Kong's legal framework.
For your exam, you need to know these two inside and out. Basic Law Article 25 and BURO Article 22. They are the absolute bedrock of any equality claim. And hey, pay close attention to that little phrase, other status. It might not look like much, but it's been so important. It's the hook the courts have used to expand protection to groups not explicitly listed, most famously sexual orientation, which has been at the heart of so many landmark cases.
All right, now for the main event. Let's see how all this builds into the most important tool you have for this topic, the justification test. This is the exact structure the court used, and it's the structure you should follow to the letter in your exam.
So listen to this because it's a crucial point. The Court of Final Appeal in CUHK LAW made a really vital distinction. They said that true discrimination can never be justified. But, and this is a big but, not all different treatment is automatically unlawful discrimination. The government is allowed to treat people differently, but only if they have a very, very good reason. And that's where this test comes in.
And here it is, the three-step justification test from CUHK LAW. Seriously, you need to have this memorized, tattooed on your brain. First, does the different treatment have a legitimate aim? Second, is there a rational connection between the treatment and that aim? And third, is it no more than necessary to achieve it? And remember, the burden is completely on the government to prove all three of these. If they fail on even one step, the whole thing falls apart.
Okay, so theory's great, right? But what really gets you the top marks in an exam is applying it. So let's look at how the courts have actually used this test in some key cases that you'll definitely want to have in your revision notes.
Now, before you even get to the justification test, a claimant has to get over this critical first hurdle. They have to identify the right comparator. I mean, to argue you're being treated worse, you have to answer the question, worse than who? Choosing that person or group to compare yourself to is a really strategic part of the legal fight.
The QT case is a fantastic example of this in action. The government tried to argue that since Hong Kong law didn't recognize civil partnerships, QT should be compared to an unmarried straight couple. But the court basically said, nice try. It looked right past the legal label and focused on the functional reality. What was the visa for? It was for uniting families. So the true comparison was between different types of legally recognized foreign unions. The big takeaway here is that the court won't just let the government use legal definitions to define away a discrimination claim.
Okay, here's another layer of detail that will really make your answer stand out. The court doesn't apply that justification test with the same intensity in every single case. When it comes to a core ground like race or sexual orientation, something really personal, the scrutiny is super high. The government needs very weighty reasons. But for issues around socioeconomic policy, like welfare, the standard is lower. The court gives the government more room to maneuver and will only step in if the policy is manifestly without foundation. Knowing which standard to apply is absolutely key.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. The concepts, the legal rules, the key cases. Now let's pull it all together into a practical toolkit, a roadmap that you can use to structure the perfect answer when you're in that exam hall.
When that exam paper opens and you see an equality question, this flowchart should immediately pop into your head. Step 1, who's the comparator? Step 2, what's the different treatment? Step 3, run through that 3-part justification test. But as you're doing that, remember Step 4, figure out the standard of review. Is it high scrutiny or low scrutiny? Because that changes how you analyze Step 3. And finally, Step 5, your conclusion. Follow this structure and you are going to have a clear, logical, high-scoring answer.
All right, it's your turn. Let's do a quick practice run with a classic problem question. Go on, hit pause for a moment, and try to apply that flowchart we just went through. Ask yourself, who's the comparator? What's the ground for the difference in treatment? And is it a core ground or is it more socioeconomic? Then, walk through the justification test. This is exactly how you should be preparing. Okay, good luck with your revision.